Hey everybody, I'm Adam, and I'm here with the normal people, Brian and Jeremiah, and we also have the author of the scenario that we just got done playing recently for Call of Cthulhu, the Grindhouse scenario, Nazi Bikers Must Die, James.
I'm James Droucker. Hi, glad to be here, guys.
Hey James, thanks for coming on. We have a lot of questions for you. I'm pretty sure they'll have more questions for you, like why did you make it so dangerous so our characters get killed? Something along those lines, I'm sure.
I'll answer as well as I can. I have some questions for you guys too. So
I refuse to answer any questions. I plead the fifth.
1, 2, 3, 4, fifth.
But also, you said we were normal. I don't think that's accurate.
I just said I'm throwing terms out there. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm using the
normal's
term.
Probably it's a benchmark, you know.
I took that personally.
Right?
Normal for us. It's all relative anyway. I mean, it's like a man with one eye on an island full of blind people. So,
Okay.
Moving on.
All right, so like I said, it was the scenario we just got done playing for Call of Cthulhu, Nazi Bikers Must Die. I personally had a blast playing it. The guys from Pink Fohawk, Ben and Dan, weren't able to make it because we were doing this the night before Halloween, and they had work shit to do so they could do trick-or-treating tomorrow.
So be it.
So.
Yeah. Weird thing is they don't have any kids, so
it's weird.
They have a good time as well. I mean, that's
we got to get all our work stuff done, or we can't go trick or treating. Come on, Dan, get your shit together.
So if anyone in the chat has any questions too, as we're going along, we'll try to keep track of that and ask any of those, and we'll go from there. I guess where we'll start, James, I was kind of curious. I usually have asked people this whenever I've done any kind of interview, but it's always a fun question. Where did you get your start in role-playing games? And I don't mean like writing them or writing scenarios, but I mean playing them. Like,
okay, playing it was like back in late 80s, early 90s, probably with for people my age, Redbox, and then those the BX sets. And I think I collected all of the box sets, and I don't know if I ever used them at all. I played with other people, but it's like it sort of bleeds into my real life now because I collect games that unfortunately I haven't had too many opportunities to play. But I'm fond of quoting Seth Grokowski, who says playing role-playing games and collecting role-playing games are two completely different things. So sort of makes me feel better about it, but those were my first experiences. I did play as a player with those a lot, and then moving on, just like little gaps in between, started playing some second edition, and then there was a larger gap, and third had been out for a while, and I met up with some of the people that I sort of played with a little bit in high school, and one of them, a friend of mine, Simon, said, "Hey, why don't you come play with my group? We were looking for some new people." And yeah, sure. So ended up playing D&D for about a year, and then was forcibly volunteered to become a GM, just because James will run Call of Cthulhu for you. I'm like, I will.
What?
Because at the time it was when they just released the D20 version of Call of Cthulhu, which I love this book. I love third edition. Third 3.5 is my jam, even though I've broken out from that a lot. But it was the first game that I ever ran as a GM. And oddly enough, the first scenario that I created, I wrote it as if I was writing something, long before I really had any ambitions to write for Call of Cthulhu or for anything. And I unfortunately lost it like the digital file disappears somewhere else. But
I really thought he meant like failed a sanity check while writing.
Call me.
But yeah, and then I played with those guys for about 10 years, and moved away, and started. And at that point, I was Mr. 3.5, 3.0. Everything was D20. It was like this. I don't need any other games. Why do I need to do that? And then I started coordinating a convention here in Kamloops called CamCon, and that sort of flung the doors open, because if I was essentially the main guy who's coordinating and curating all of the role-playing game content for the convention, and so I felt it upon myself that it was a good idea to get to know more games and broaden my library, as it were. And then this happened. Extensive, like it goes all the way down there. And when I was coordinating with CamCon, I met some guys from an outfit called the Sons of the Singularity, who made Call of Cthulhu supplements through Kickstarter. First one was the Sassoon Files, and then they were getting ready to do one called Journal d'Indochine. And I just said, "Hey, do you need any more writers? I've always wanted to try writing a scenario." And they're, "Sure, yeah, here, give us a couple of pitches." And so I worked for like 3 months on these 3 pitches. One was a 10-page pitch. Don't ever do that. That was the best way for me to show how green I was. And then there was like this other 3-page pitch, still too long. And then literally a day and a half before they wanted the pitches submitted, I wrote this 1.5-page thing. Guess which one they chose?
Page and a half. Yeah.
The one they could read.
And I mean, in retrospect, it was the right one. It was a good scenario. But that went into the volume 2 of Journal of the Machine, and that was my first published work. And then everything else has just sort of led from there. And I ended up doing some Grindhouse stuff with Alex Glott. And then I did an interview with a couple of guys from Dork Day Interview Afternoon.
It's
in a nutshell,
full history right there.
There it is.
I've never been included in the summary before. So on the Grindhouse one, just since that was what we had just done or just released, because we recorded it a little while ago. But on that one, so I was kind of, I like Grindhouse movies, I guess, is where I was going with that. So when you were writing it, was there any specific movies you kind of had in mind when you were writing the scenario, like as points of reference? Or
I think my first point of reference, because the Grindhouse films as kind of a milieu that I would get introduced to was probably more through like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez movie Grindhouse. Like I knew about these cheap schlocky films from the 70s, and there were some that I really enjoyed and liked, but I never really had gotten into them, although I was a big movie guy. So cinematic was already in my blood, and so I was kind of like when I again pitched to Alex the possibility of writing one of the scenarios in his anthologies. The Grindhouse movie was probably my first kind of place to start, but then knowing, like, going into the history of Grindhouse films and also looking at what he'd done already in terms of his Grindhouse scenarios, I wanted to do something that stood apart but still kind of fit in those in that kind of space. And I knew that there were a lot of biker related Grindhouse movies, and of course there are all sorts of Nazi related. And so like, and I've told it before, it's like I Alex said, "Well, what do you got in mind?" And I pitched a couple of ideas. I had one that I still want to do someday that involved the player characters being Elvis and his entourage fighting against some sort of mythic threat.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Like Bubba Hotep type.
Fuck
Yes.
yes,
That
I'm
kind of
down.
thing. Totally.
I'm
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like,
Who gets to play
I said
Elvis?
the same thing. I said the same thing to Seth Krakowski when he interviewed me, and he's like, "You have my undivided attention," and I'm like,
Yes.
I know it's a good idea, so that one's going to happen eventually. And a
100%.
couple of other little things, but the other one was I just basically said, "Well, have you done anything with bikers?" And he's like, "No, not really." I said, "Okay, have you done anything with Nazis?" He's like, "No, not really." I'm like, "Well, there's my pitch: bikers and Nazis." and it sort of grew from there. It's like, what we have is we've got bad guys versus worse guys, because I didn't necessarily want our bikers to be shining paragons of virtue or anything. And you guys, you definitely, from what I saw, you definitely were not. And cheers to that. That's perfect. And that's because where it started. Because again, like with a lot of those grindhouse movies, you're dealing with characters that have a lot of darkness to them to begin with. There's very few really good guys. Like the paragons of virtue are the ones that either gack it really quickly or make it out in the end and turned into one of the bikers or one of the Nazis or something like that. So so like She-Wolves of the SS was another one that sort of jumped to my head, because that's like really when you're talking about grindhouse Nazi movies, that's one of the big ones. So but yeah, stuff like that, and obviously more contemporary stuff like Sons of Anarchy obviously is using that as kind of a basis to draw like my biker knowledge from. So like all my biker knowledge and all of my Nazi knowledge, while there was some research that was done, because you want it to feel like a movie and like a film narrative, I wanted to take as many cues from kind of like the popular culture visions of what those things were as opposed to the reality, because sometimes reality isn't all that exciting. So. As we know.
Well, I mean, and that makes sense for RPGs, like, because RPGs can't just be like quote reality, it's got to have some like over the top, And that was, I think, one of the things we talked about too, because we do have a tendency with like our Twilight 2000 game that we play, we kind of lean into the dark realism, grittier style, but then like doing this, I made sure to point out, I was like, this is still grindhouse, kind of over the top cinematic. So if you guys have something weird you want to do, please do it.
Just fly out. Well, and like leaning into that sort of stuff, like the movie physics. It's like when you shoot the gas tank of a car, it blows up, unless it's the hero car, then it doesn't blow up.
And then it doesn't blow up. Yeah.
So and like I wrote stuff like that into the scenario where if they want to do something completely nuts that doesn't make sense, if it makes sense in terms of a movie, do it. My main philosophy as a GM has always been find every way you can to say yes to your players, and I think that's just especially when you're doing something over the top. Yeah, exactly. Well,
I tried to ask him to run it for us when he first said the idea. I was like, "Do you want to run it for us?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "All right, never mind."
I'm not a very good GM online. I need to be in person with people, so we'll drag you out to CamCon some year, and I'll run something for you.
100%. I'm allowed to go to Canada, so it's fine.
Hey, there you go.
Wait.
It's a long story. We're not going to go into it.
Wait.
Let's just say I'm allowed to. That's all.
It's not near a school, is it?
No. Brian, this is related to your character specifically, because I didn't read up on all the descriptions of the characters, but you, with Holler with the dog, how much of that was your bullshit, Brian, and how much of that was real?
It said he had a dog. That was in the character description, is that he had a dog.
Oh.
Yep. Poe.
Okay. And the name. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I tried to stick with the character as much as I could. I tried to bring out any of those little nuances that he had added to that character subtly, because I don't ever feel like it's so much better if you just try and let it pull out naturally than to just like state like my character sheet says this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that's why like I didn't introduce the dog like right out the gate like hey, look, I read my character sheet. It was more like and then you see a dog's head pop out of his vest.
Yeah. And I think that there's a bit of an art to making good like pre-written PCs too, because if you give them too much description, then you don't give the player much opportunity to create the character themselves. So I just wanted to give little bits and pieces that they could somehow generically build from that. Like, I mean, I just said, yeah, he has a little dog, a small dog named Poe. Now, what you want that to say about your character is completely up to you. And I'm not saying what the dog is like. So you could say the dog is like a total killer, or he's completely docile and friendly to everybody, or whatever. I mean, that becomes your character at that point. So
Right, and it didn't describe the dog at all. Like, it could have been a big dog that rode on the back, but instead I made it a small dog that like rode in the vest.
Yeah, I think I envisioned it a small dog for some reason, just because I like the juxtaposition of this big guy who used to be the trucker having a teeny dog. It just
That's
struck
that's
me as
immediately
funny.
where my brain went. So.
They fit in the cab better, you know.
Well,
Right.
Yeah,
You don't want a
and you
Great
could-
Dane with you.
You could
It's
get
too
like
much
one.
dog.
You could, and on the motorcycle, you could also get one of the like little dog carrying cases and just like bungee strap it on the back,
They didn't have
the
those in
pylon.
the 70s, did they?
dude, sidecar.
Sidecar. I know, but yeah, I wasn't thinking about turning the motorcycle into a tricycle. Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, no, it all works. That's the thing. So, but like your dog and sidecar, that like goggles on the dog. I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and even in light of that, very first thing that you did, Adam, when we first started the scenario, what does your bike look like?
Yeah.
That's what you started with, and there wasn't anything with like what our bikes look like. Like there wasn't any description of our bikes, but Holler had crashed his semi truck, was part of his character description into a statue and whatnot. So that's why I made it a rat bike. It's actually his old rig that he just fashioned into a motorcycle.
To James's credit, that was in the scenario. Like that was actually he wrote that into there. It was like have them describe this for the opening, you know. And I was like, that's a great idea. So-
Oddly enough, that wasn't in my first draft. That was our editor, Keith Maggio, suggested that to me. It's like maybe gives your characters and players a chance to like create their world a little bit more. And I thought it was a great idea. So yeah, putting that in there, and it's like, you know, because I like somebody did one of your players have a Goldwing essentially, or was that
yeah.
am I thinking
Well, was it a
somebody else?
Goldwing
Yeah.
or was it
It was a BMW.
BMW? There was a
Yeah.
BMW. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And like that's awesome. I mean, and it says so much about what you're saying about your character
Yeah.
at the same time, because this like you're gonna have one guy with the monkey bars and then somebody's
Yeah.
gonna have like a yeah. It's so I love that. I love it, and I love that choice. So
It especially amused me because I was like, historically, the motorcycle clubs, you had to be on an American-made motorcycle, but you're on. All right, but that's fine. Whatever. I'm not going to say no. Sure.
well, I also wanted the ability for this, like the Devil's Pistons, because I gave you the descriptions in the scenario where they're kind of a small club. They're not like one of the big four, but the big four know who they are and they respect them because it's like you guys have seen some shit. And if something weird happens, chances are it's because or happens to the Devil's Pistons. So it leaves a lot of openings for the future, and I will tease that there are further adventures of the Devil's Pistons coming.
Awesome.
So.
Oh man!
Well, we're only. Never mind. I don't want to do any spoilers, but we might be down a Devil's Pistons, so you might need to write some more brave chats.
A couple more brigades.
You guys will be the first
Just in
people to
case.
come back to. But yeah, I can't say much about it right now, but maybe I'll tell you guys a little bit about it later.
Sleepy Dorm House. I'm assuming that's what the one is supposed to be. An L in the chat asked if we had uploaded us playing it. We did. It's on our YouTube channel. There's a playlist for the Call of Cthulhu, and it's all 6 episodes of our playthrough. The last 2 are the longest ones, so they're like an hour and a half, and then 2 hours of the end of it. It went on for a while.
Pure mayhem.
Yeah, well, not as much mayhem as it could have been. Yeah, like having read it, and like we were talking a little bit beforehand, you guys missed some things that you could have done that were crazy, but you know.
Well, yeah.
It's a sandbox, and it's however you get to from point A to point B. So
yeah,
it's wicked.
Jeremiah also had a thing with his character that with Rabbi, there was the thing where it talked about his Seal of Solomon, and we had kind of a funny moment where we didn't know what that looked like.
I had no idea. I had to Google it. I was like,
Yeah.
I've heard of it. I just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
It-
Give
and-
you guys a bit of homework.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that and the hands, for the other thing. I guess that was for the Nazi hunters. They had their own little symbol with like
Oh yeah.
the hand with the eye in it.
Yeah.
And we had to look all of those things up. Had no idea.
Well, but and at the same time, your player characters may not have any idea about some of these things either.
Right.
Like obviously the rabbi is going to understand the sign of Solomon and such,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I think it's something that needs to kind of generically come out through gameplay as you're learning sometimes. So
Yeah. The cool thing about that was like in my head, it made me think of, for whatever reason, since it's a magic item, effectively at that point, it kind of made me think of like the Monkey King's baton.
Yeah.
It just suddenly does weird things when you start saying the right words for it. And it's like, oh no, this mundane object suddenly is not mundane.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm not sure if you were supposed to be hitting people with it, if that was the thing, or if that was Jeremy's addition to.
it was my interpretation of using it.
Yeah. Whatever works.
I mean, I could show it to him, but then we get into like this whole like nerdy raw mechanics of like, okay, what is your range and like how far do you have to be for this to be effective? So I said, fuck it, I'll just hit him with it. That's got to count.
Since Call of Cthulhu didn't have alignment, I was iffy on the evil thing, but it was fine because it said up to handler discretion or whatever.
I don't like playing with alignments. I think it's
Not right.
Not my
yeah,
thing.
yeah. By the way, Pink Fohawk, who was there in the chat, and I'm assuming it's probably Ben, and he said 2 hours of family fun was the end of it because it was.
Yeah. Very, very wholesome. Usually involving holes being in somebody else, but wholesome.
Oh man. So the let's see. One of the if you guys have any questions, Brian or Jeremy, at any point, you guys can totally jump in. So don't feel like you're just waiting for me to lead everything.
Yeah.
But one of the things I liked was that you had it kind of open on which place they went first. I mean, I think you had it like the gas station to try to go there first because they're trying to find where Ostrander was from. Or not where it's from, but where his house was or his bookstore. And I kind of like then even then it split off into like two different places.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys knew that.
Yeah. Well, I think if you put it on too much of the rails, then it doesn't feel like you have much agency. And I'm also, it's like, I think if your scenario has a beginning and an end, then you're on a railway one way or the other. The trick is building something that doesn't feel railroady to the players. So giving them options of directions to go. And sometimes you just make it so obvious what they have to do that it still feels like a choice, but it just doesn't make sense to do anything else.
Right. It's like that's where the thing is. You need to go there. You're just trying to find out where that is. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, it made sense to go to the gas station first. It's just I just tried to use logic to make things work so that I could create these set pieces in the right places. So.
Well, it was funny because one of the things they were like, well, we'll look it up in the phone book. And I'm like, oh, crap. And I was like, and then I went straight to, because having grown up in that era, I was like, someone tore that page out. It's not in the phone book. It's like, it's just missing. There you go. You can't find it yet. Ben says he's watching from his phone. He just wanted to say, amazing scenario, James. And thanks again to DDA Boys for inviting Dan and I. Tons of fun. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, every time we've had them on, and for anything, it's been chaos. So we're gonna have to do it
that
again.
Works for
it's right up my alley every time they're on.
Yeah. When you first brought this one to my attention, James, you were like, "Hey, do you guys want to play this?" I was like, "I pick Fohawk." That's the only two people I could think of. I got to get Ben and Dan back on to play bikers with us because that'll be amazing.
Well, it was always very selfish of me to try and want to get people to play my game, and not because of like any glory or anything. It's like, oh, I was craving feedback, and unfortunately, just I haven't gotten reviews on Drive Through RPG, and I've had a couple of little things. So yeah, please,
Noted.
if you guys have, if you don't like my scenario, put a review on Drive Through RPG. I want to hear the bad stuff. I want to hear the good stuff. I want to hear everything, because this is really, it's like I've written like 5 or 6 scenarios all told, so I'm relatively green, all things considered, and 2 of them are Call of Cthulhu scenarios, and getting feedback from anybody, no matter whether it's good or bad, is just going to make me better in the future. And so I'm hungry for it. And part of watching you guys play and getting your guys' feedback was about, it's like, okay, what worked, what didn't work, where do I go next? And and it's invaluable. And that's, to me, it's just, any kind of feedback is what I crave. So when I came to you, it was about stimulating feedback, and not just from you guys, but from your audience and from anybody who may, let's go check this scenario out and run it and move it forward. And it's like, it's frustrating because I've gotten a fair amount of feedback from individuals, stuff like on Discords and stuff like that. And a lot of them have been really, really glowing. And again, it's not to bolster my ego. I'm like, I'm glad you loved it, but that doesn't do me any good. tell me the stuff that you hated.
What did I do wrong?
Didn't work. Exactly.
Tell
It's
me
like I had
where I
one
need
guy
to improve.
Yeah, I had one guy run it at his local game shop, and he emails me back. He said, this has got to be the greatest scenario I've ever run in my life. And it's like, I've been running games for 15 years. This is verbatim. I'm not boosting myself up here. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I need criticism. I need to construct, but I mean, have you loved it? I mean, predominantly as an artist, I'm nothing without my audience. And if my audience loves it, then I'm doing something right, and I like that.
So
what? Go ahead, Jeremy.
It has a bunch of music built into it. At least that's what Adam said, and I'm not sure how much of the music was his bullshittery or was actually in it.
Well, one song for sure is in it. Father and Son during the bar fight, and that was very, very specific. It was like, for me, it was I was trying to kind of channel my inner.
I would have totally made that was your bull crap.
No, I was trying to think of what would be the weirdest counterpoint for an absolutely ridiculous and violent scene. What would be the weirdest music to have on in the background? And Father and Son, Cat Stevens, kind of popped into my head, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And then just like building around that, and it's like did you have the bartender cry when the song was playing? Excellent. There we go. so that was the only music, as far as I remember, that's the only musical cue that I inserted into the scenario. We did make a playlist that's on Spotify that I just basically took stuff that was kind of suitable to both the feel and the time.
That's awesome.
So he probably used some of that too. That was Alex's idea, and it was a lot of fun creating that playlist. I should listen to it again sometime. So.
I think what I did was I read down the lit when they were looking at the jukebox. I kind of just read through the list of what was written in there. It's like, it's stuff like Led Zeppelin and yada yada, Iron Maiden, or not Iron Man. I'm sorry, like Black Sabbath, and that predates Iron Maiden. But yeah, no, the Father and Son thing. Here's the funny thing about it was, and I think why they would have thought that was Adam's bullshit was because I know at least Jeremy knows this. That's one of the songs I sing to my daughter, like since she was like a little baby, and she still requests it. So when I got to that in the like scenario, I was like, "This is amazing."
Yeah. Well, I think every because I used to be a filmmaker as well. Did short films and stuff, and when I was creating that sequence, it was the filmmaker in me who wanted this. Like, how would I film this, and how would I use that song, and kind of like, again, channeling like Tarantino when he used "Stuck in the Middle with You" in Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs. I mean,
you can't listen to that song the same way after watching that movie ever. Yeah. It's like every time I listen to that song, I think about a cop getting his ear chopped off. It's like that's what happens. And to even have like if the players in this game forevermore, every time Father and Son comes on, they think about Nazis bursting out of their bodies and becoming grisly, disgusting monsters that are trying to kill them. Just kind of warms the cockles of my heart.
It's gonna make me think of grenade hot potato. Is what it's gonna.
Oh,
make
there
me
you
think
go.
Of.
Yeah, that was kind of fun because that was another thing that's like written into the scenario with the grenade was it was like it's up to the handler on if it's a live grenade or not, and and I had them roll a luck roll. I was like, roll a luck roll, and then it like got hot potatoed around, and it was a
It was bad.
So I decided since they rolled well on the luck roll, wherever it ends up when it explodes is the most beneficial version for them.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
So I was like, that's how we'll play this out.
I loved adding stuff like that where it's the grenades weren't necessary to how the scenario would progress, but it just sort of made sense that this ex-vet would have this kind of crap sitting behind the bar. Although,
especially in Grindhouse.
Yeah, exactly. But there is one thing that I put in the scenario that I keep asking people whether they did anything with. Did you do anything with the swordfish?
I'm sorry, what?
There was a picture of the bar when it said Paps, but that was the thing is with our group.
Yeah.
It was Dan. Dan's character was actually, he decided to name him Paps instead of Cola, which was the original name.
Yeah.
So then when Adam showed us the picture of the bar, we never thought swordfish because we all got hooked up on the Paps sign, and then we were like, there it is.
I mean, I dropped that in there again, very indulgent kind of. It's like there's a swordfish on the wall, and it's like in a little section of its own that I called Chekhov's swordfish. And if you understand the Chekhov's gun, it's like the only reason I put it in there because I wanted somebody to take it off the wall and impale somebody with it. I keep hoping that's going to happen sometime.
I intentionally haven't told them about this yet because I wanted their reaction to that information.
Missed that opportunity.
I know. I'm actually very mad.
I'm so disappointed now.
But again, like I said, it's indulgent for me to put that in there because I want people to do that. Sorry, Brian, you were saying?
Oh no, I in the actual like bar fight itself. I mean, I wasn't even participating the way everybody else was. So I was playing my own game.
Yeah.
I beat up some random ass patron.
Yeah, Ben even said he's just playing a bar fight simulator. He's not even in the game anymore.
So they went so far off the rails early on, right? That I started making up NPCs, right? Yeah. So like they ended up, one of them got arrested by the cops, so I put his motorcycle on the back of a tow truck. So then they go up, and he's like, I'm going to talk to the tow truck driver. I'm like, all right, well, now there's this tow truck driver. Big Joe. Yeah, sure, fine, that's his name. And then, anyway, so they get to the bar, and I'm like, fine, Big Joe's at the bar, and the motorcycle's on the back. So Brian spent the whole bar fight, instead of killing Nazis, trying to beat up Big Joe so he could take the keys for the tow truck. As Nazis are turning into these things, I'm like, what are you guys doing?
It's perfect. It's the way it works, man.
I had to get Paps's bike back. It was on the truck still.
As Nazis are bursting open into these horrible creatures, he's like,
the best part about it is we had already stolen the key.
Now I do have another question. Skyver, how did you guys eventually deal with him?
He kind of got lost in the bar fight. Actually, it was kind of unfortunate because I really liked the way you wrote that up. That was really fun with the knife in the chest, right? Like there's stuff written in there, guys, about like the knife in the chest. Like you could try to yank it out and like kill him. Yeah. So that kind of got like,
and it happens.
Bypassed.
That's fine. Again, it's another indulgent thing because like I think I had a friend of mine who was doing short action scenes, and he asked me to write a script for an action sequence, and this was like 15 years ago, and it involved the fight with this one Asian guy, the whole martial arts thing, and then this Russian guy who had a knife stuck in his chest in much the same way, where it was just they couldn't remove it because if they did, he would die. So they had this whole fight sequence that worked out, and eventually somehow he tore the knife out of his chest and killed him with it. And I kind of I wanted to put that in there, and to me, just a character with a knife permanently embedded in his chest feels really Grindhouse.
Oh yeah.
So,
I didn't even question it.
Yeah, I was just like, oh yeah, it's a Grindhouse movie. Of course he has a knife just permanently in his chest.
Now, I will say just real quick, like we ended up going. Ben said that the truck saved him in the end, and I responded with "Not everyone, LOL." But anyway, yeah, our Skyver dynamic kind of shifted somewhere along the way, and it turned into like he was hitting on one of the PCs, and but that was me being weird. That was more about me.
Well, I think
was me.
I remember seeing that. That was Dan from Pink Fohawk, who was sort of took it in that direction. And hey, totally works. Again, another very kind of grindhousey kind of thing. So
because I was thinking about like bikers like in the early stages of like the motorcycle clubs, and they would do things to like freak people out. You know what I mean? Like normal people, like they would do stuff like that to like weird out the locals and shit. So I was like, yeah okay, that makes sense. But especially in like the 60s and 70s where everyone's like, oh no.
Yeah. And it's wherever you want to take your characters. And whatever. Just if it makes sense to you, you make it work. And obviously if you're taking these as they're coming, you're GMing it really well. So yeah.
Sleepy Dormhouse asked if we would recommend this scenario for a new group. For a clarification, I'm curious if you mean like someone new to running games or like a new group to Call of Cthulhu, because this was actually my first time running Call of Cthulhu specifically. I've never ran Call of Cthulhu before. It's fine.
Yeah. No, and it's fine. Like, cause I think
got
watching
the rules
you guys
wrong.
Watching you guys play and run it has informed me and Alex on different ways that we might edit or format some of the games going forward. Because one of the things that we didn't, because we do say that it's meant for a more seasoned GM to run it, just because understanding the rules and being able to fly by the seat of your pants. But I remember you guys having issues at the beginning with a lot of skill checks. It's like, oh, what's your spot hidden? It's like, oh, he doesn't have spot hidden. It's like, well, you do. It's just not on. And so we want to make sure there's like a list of this is what the base skill levels for everything is, because you have access to like 25% or something of spot hidden.
Yeah.
Just because it's not on there.
That's because none of us read the quick start rules.
Yeah.
That's definitely our own fault.
Yeah.
That's also because I sent it to him.
I can't read.
And it's fine. And again, for your first time, like, have any of you played Call of Cthulhu before, or is this the first time playing Call of Cthulhu?
I've ran Delta Green, and so it's like there was enough overlap that I kind of had the gist of the rules. So there were little differences in that because Delta Green has like the crits are like the numbers are the same on the 2 dice below or a crit fails above, and this was, and I know Call of Cthulhu has like the extreme and the hard success variation, so it wasn't too bad for me. It's like I was familiar enough with the concepts that it was fine. But yeah, I do think that having those numbers in there of like the minimum, like whatever your minimum is, if they're 20 is probably good, especially if it's like new players. Like that's not a bad thing to have.
I think like I fashioned it to be a one shot was kind of what I originally imagined it to be, like a good convention game. And watching you guys play it obviously made me kind of rethink, oh well, obviously it could go a little bit longer than that. But again,
we're bad about dragging things out though.
And it's not meant to be a criticism either. It's just, you just never know how that's going to present itself. Because I do still think that you could easily run it in a single session, so long as you keep things tight and you go through. But to get that much joy and fun out of it, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel obviously, again, I did something right. Still trying to figure out what that magic sauce is.
I really enjoyed running it. So that was great. There were a lot of things in it that I was like, oh, they didn't go there. Oh, or not they didn't go there, but like whatever it was, they didn't do a thing that brought it up. I'm like, oh man.
Okay, I remember watching at the beginning with character selection, and again, it's like partly of my own history with the creation of this, but the fact that nobody took Major Tom, it was so sad. I know. I could tell you were like, nobody's gonna take Major Tom, and I created him. Again, when I had an idea for making a script for, do you remember the first Mad Max film? And he basically he's part of the main Force Patrol, which is like pre-apocalyptic police force. And I had an idea to write a script that was going to be the main force patrol after the apocalypse. So they're wandering the wasteland as this independent police force that is, policing the wastelands, as it were. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty wicked.
Yeah.
And one of the characters I came up with was Major Tom. And that's where he started. And again, I envisioned him played by Jason Statham. It was a big Jason Statham guy at the time. And Major Tom was tough as nails, had some sort of history that made him adopt this name. And you don't call him Major and you don't call him Tom. You call him Major Tom. And if you mention the song, he knocks your lights out. And that was the very basic description of the character. And so when it came time to make this, kind of transposing it over to a biker was like it was natural. It was perfect. So I was glad I was finally able to use that character and put him in some fashion. And when you guys were selecting, like, obviously you guys selected the right characters for who you wanted to play. And again, it's indulgent of me to like, Major Tom. I love Major Tom.
Yeah, that was my favorite of the pre-gens, and I was also disappointed that nobody selected him. I was like, man, nobody picked
You
Major
reckon
Tom.
that's what you would have played then?
Yeah, I totally would have picked Major Tom. Yeah. Well, and now that you mentioned the Mad Max thing, like as soon as you started saying that, I kind of imagined his police captain from the first movie, the guy with the mustache.
Yeah.
Like that. Now that's who I'm like. Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of thing. Totally. Yeah. No, it's. I enjoy a lot making pre-generated characters for these games. I think I think it can add a lot to a game if you do it right. Again, like I said, you don't give too much, direction with it, but the little enough things that can add a flavor to that character. It's like one. I can't remember which character has the phobia of statues.
Holler.
Yeah.
Holler?
Yeah, because he crashed his truck into the statue. That's why his bike was a rat bike built from his old truck.
Now, was there did anything happen at the mother's place with all the Hummels?
I didn't.
There was no statues.
Yeah,
No.
I did. Yeah. Well, wait. I think you guys weren't. You didn't go there.
He didn't.
No,
go there.
I went to the police
that
station
would
to
be-
get Dan.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
I
to
built
get
that
past.
in. I built that in. There was because when they went to the bookseller's mother's home, or they lived with his mother, she has like hundreds of Hummel figurines all around, and I did that 100% for Holler's character because I wanted his phobia to like kick in. It's like you walk through the door and there's like 100 figures, little statues staring at you, and it's like, this could be a cool moment, and that's all it is. And
yeah, no. See, when the one guy got arrested by cops, they did this and like all went in different directions, and so then I had to deal with a split party, and I actually totally didn't draw that connection because I was too busy going
Quit moving.
and I'm not making criticisms here of you guys at all. It's like it's just these again. It's very indulgent of me when I'm creating this stuff and having these ideas, and it's like because I'm building it as if I'm running it. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a character who had a statue phobia and he walks into this house filled with little miniature statues, and just like at that point you give it to the character or the player and see what happens. But again, it's like you've read the scenario, so it's littered with all sorts of little things like that.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I liked about it was that there was a lot of little things that like if they work, you can be like, oh, that thing, oh, this thing, and like as a handler, you can like kind of pick and choose the what things you use, from any given scenario. Yeah, totally understand. I'm kind of surprised my daughter has never made it into one of our streams, but
she did.
No, I love it. Well, now it's can I ask each of you what like some of your favorite things about your experience? Like Jeremiah, you can go first.
Favorite thing about my experience. As far as I really like I like the hooks that are built into it. I really like the hooks with the characters themselves, and like you were saying about like Holler and having the statues, and like I really like those little nuanced things that are dropped in there. It's like, okay, here's this weird thing that can totally change everything that's about to happen.
Yeah.
Because there was a part, which I don't think we ever really got to because we never got the book, but where Rabbi gets kicked out of yeshiva. Yeah, expelled from yeshiva because he has an unhealthy interest in the occult. And I was like, oh no, if we get a hold of that book, he's going to fucking read it. Like, he's not going to turn it over, and he's going to read it because and it was just like, I was just waiting for it, but I never got the opportunity because of the way it all played out. Yeah. So I was just holding on to that. And I like those little things in there, those little carrots that you're just like, okay, when this shows up, here's your opportunity.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's what it was like. I mean, Rabbi was built out of that conceit almost 100%, was to make sure that there was a character who, if you wanted to read the book, was able to do it with better accuracy than anybody else, which is kind of a double-edged sword, because obviously
you don't want to read the book because
weird shit happens. Don't want to do that. That's the main rule in Call of Cthulhu, is you do not read the book.
Don't read the book.
So, but that's fun stuff. What about you, Brian?
Well, I mean,
interview around on you guys.
Yeah,
that's fine. No, that's fine. It makes my job easier. Wait, hold on.
Oh, you'll get yours.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of the same thing. Is just the little pieces of information and being able to build upon those things. Because actually, my favorite thing that I did during the whole scenario is when I just, with Holler, it said that he had the occult and possibly had been like abducted by aliens at one point in time and all this. So then, like, it actually says that on my sheet, and then so they're all in the gas station, and then it cuts back to me out at the pumps with the rest of the Nazi. I'm like, and that's the third time I got probed.
That bit was amazing.
Wait, what was the alien thing in the character description?
Yes.
Was that okay?
Yes, there was a small little thing that was like, Holler has possibly been abducted by aliens.
Well, and it's a little.
And so then how does that connect to the actual character and the scenario? It's like, so he was a little more lax about everything going on. It's like, I've seen this before.
I've seen some shit. No, and that's exactly why. I mean, it's like, because I didn't go into specifics, and I didn't even say whether it was true or not. But it's like, what can a player do with that, and how can it inform the character that they want to make out of this?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Well, and that's like we were talking before, before we went live, like the game we play more often right now with our Twilight 2000 game, and the encounter cards is I enjoy like story seeds. You know what I mean? It's just like, here's a little nugget, if you want to do something with it, and then letting that kind of extrapolate from there,
unfold.
But, yeah. And as a GM, I love it when players have that opportunity to just kind of we built our entire campaign at this point around one player going, my goal is my big dream is to find my son, and now our whole campaign is kind of morphed around that. Yeah.
It's the emergent storytelling.
Yeah, I love that kind of. Dan said that he felt like the characters were well established enough that honestly we could have played around in the town with zero Nazis or a book or anything, and I agree that would have had no plot, but it would have been something.
We would have figured out a plot. It would have ended up being us against those cops pretty quickly, I'm sure.
What we need is we'll just play a follow up before before the sequel comes up, and we'll play one where the Hell's Pistons just go to biker week somewhere, and it's just them.
Well, I mean,
hanging out at Sturgis.
Just hanging out at Sturgis. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I think Dan's comments say a lot more about your skills as a GM, quite frankly, than just my. No, obviously you do a good job with it, and it's like, if you do a good job, it makes me look good. So thank you, and if you guys enjoy it and have fun with it, makes me look good. So thank you, and thank you, Dan and Ben, for doing everything you guys did. So it's a hoot.
Yeah, the funny thing is on their show on Pink Faux Hawk, they do this thing called shadow facts, right, where they'll be at the beginning of some episodes they'll do the thing where they reveal some things about their character, their player character, and they turned it around on me and they were like, oh, give us a GM fact, and I'm like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of it's Dexter, and then I ended up just making up a thing about Dexter that it was named after the guy's dad, You know, just because like a running joke.
Nice.
The town is Dexter. Yeah, it was his dad. But like since then, they've all named. It was a whole thing. I don't even remember the specifics of it, but.
Well, what about you, Adam? Then, like, what as a GM? Like, I mean, that's also like I'm very keen on getting that information. Like, what were your favorite things?
I mean, in all honesty, my favorite things about it were all of the little things that were just like, and there's this here if they want to do anything with it, and there's this here if they, you know. I like having those kind of things to go. I mean, I'll make shit up sometimes, you know, if I'm running a game anyway. But it's nice to not have to. You know what I mean? It's nice to be like, oh, cool, there is this thing there, you know, like. And but I liked the little details, like the father and son thing, or the hand grenade. Like or the swordfish. Like seriously, the swordfish was great. Like I really was like, I kept thinking about being like, guys, there's a swordfish over the bar, you know, and like reminding them, like as like a camera shot, swordfish. Like, But I feel like if I'd have mentioned it again, it would have probably happened. But
that's something I felt you did really well too, is really embracing the movie quality of the scenario. It's like you talk about like slow-mo motions or camera pans up kind of thing, and it's honestly it's the kind of thing I do normally in my own games because I like a cinematic feel to everything that I do when it comes to running these games, and I like you hit those notes really well, understanding that it is very cinema inspired, and that's where the inspiration needs to kind of direct the running of the game.
Yeah, and my brain works that way anyway. So like as I was reading, I was like, "No, this is perfect." Yeah, I can like see, you know, it's like
I mean, when
kind of camera shots. So
when I first talked to you about running this, you know, and you were really excited and on board for the whole thing, and I could tell that you had that kind of appreciation of films and movies and shitty movies as well. I hope I'm okay to swear. And
we swear all the fucking time. It's
okay. and that's kind of like the hallmark of the Grindhouse movies is there's some really, really bad movies that are just wonderful because of it. And trying to capture that, because the problem with capturing it's like I love the Grindhouse movies, but I think Kill Bill is also a Grindhouse movie. But my problem with Kill Bill is I thought it was trying too hard to be that, and sort of ruined it for me. It's like, it's like the Matrix films, not Grindhouse, but the first Matrix film was amazing and fantastic, and in a sense, completely by accident. You know, nobody was expecting this movie to do what it did and become what it did, and they just did what they did, and accidentally, it was amazing. And then they tried to do it on purpose for the next two films, and that's why they weren't very good. And that's my opinion. Some people like them. The highway chase in the second film is one of the best action sequences ever put to film, like bar none. It's amazing. I mean, the only chase sequence that's any better or as good as that is the
Blues Brothers.
That one's good too. But the one I'm going to give you is going to surprise you. I think the second best car chase sequence of all time is the end of Toy Story 1.
Yeah, no. Oh, that's a good. You know what? I agree. That is a really good. Yeah, where they're trying to get back up on a moving truck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's tight. It's action packed, and it makes sense, and it's fun. It's so good, and so many people don't give that sequence its due. And if nothing else, people need to watch Toy Story and understand that's a great action sequence.
The first three Toy Story movies are an amazing trilogy, like just as like storytelling. Like they're fucking. I 100% agree. Yeah. Well, and the other thing so here's the thing. One, part of the reason I was so excited about this was one, I love motorcycles. Two, I love motorcycle movies. Like Easy Rider is one of my all-time favorite movies. And then the other thing was I loved the Nazis being the bad guys because that was perfect for Grindhouse. It's like obviously they're Nazi bikers. Yeah. Why wouldn't they be? You know, like obviously it's Nazi bikers. Like that just makes sense because they're like eternal bad guy. You know what I mean? Like they're the one people that you can always put in a movie as the bad guy, and no one's like, you know what? That's not fair.
Yeah. and the wonderful thing
There I
about
was
Nazis,
rooting for them.
Why are they always the bad guys?
And this is a sentence that you're going to hear very often, but the wonderful thing about Nazis is you can do anything you want to them.
Yeah, and everyone's
so
like,
making
well,
them a bad guy. Yeah, making them a bad guy in something like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So generally, Call of Cthulhu and like Delta Green isn't really my style of game because it can be a little too dark for me, and I
Yeah.
Contrary to Twilight 2000, the game
Oh
we
yeah,
normally
the
play,
lighthearted game that we normally play.
it even then it took a lot of convincing on Adam's part to even get me to play it. But the fact, like, as soon as Adam was like, "We're gonna play a Call of Cthulhu scenario called Nazi Bikers Must Die," before he even finished the sentence, I was like, "I'm in." This sounds
he was
so
like, "I'm
over
in.
the top
Done."
and absurd that like the serious, like, dark horror aspect of it won't even matter. Like, it's gonna be over the top. Let's do it.
I mean, it's amazing to me in that for the longest time, because I didn't come up with a title for it for a long time. And I think I originally, my first title was something like the Devil's Pistons versus the Nazi Bikers from Hell or something like that, because that sounded kind of grindhouse.
Yeah.
But it was kind of wordy, mouthy, and I just didn't know what to do with it. I had no idea for a title. And then Alex basically said, "Well, why not Nazi Bikers Must Die?" No, he said Nazi Bikers Must Die, and I'm like, "Oh yes!" Exclamation point.
Well, yeah, it's got to be in there. It has to be in there. Like
and
that extra emphasis.
It's so perfect. It's so wonderful, and like it turns it from just another scenario that is in the wonderful kind of like selection of the grindhouse stuff that I do with Alex, but it turns it into that one that you can sell by just giving the title alone. And so many people have been like, "I need to try this out." It's like, why? Well, because it's called Nazi Bikers Must Die. Okay, yeah.
It's so to the point.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And I will eternally put that down to Alex for coming up with that title, because it's perfect, and it does so much heavy lifting for this scenario, quite frankly. So, because Nazi Bikers Must Die. Yes, they must die.
Obviously, they must die.
Well, and I do love your enthusiasm for the exclamation point.
Yes.
Some of our group doesn't share that.
I was very insistent about that. It had to be on there. I don't know why. It just seemed like it fit. Oh, did we just lose Brian?
No, he got put in timeout.
Oh, okay.
For critiquing the Overlord. That's what he got put in timeout for.
Yeah, no, that exclamation point was just, it's kind of like the icing on the cake for me, just for the title. It's part of the title, and obviously people are gonna be like, "Oh, it's kind of like Surf Nazis Must Die." I'm like, well, yeah, kind of.
I mean,
but
that's what's perfect about it. No, the exclamation mark, the exclamation mark, I feel like was necessary and had to be there. Yeah, no, Nazi Bikers Must Die! Exclamation mark. I think at some point we changed it into a question mark.
Yeah, well, depends on how things turn out.
Nazi Bikers should die. I mean,
may die,
oh, no,
maybe might die. But that was just because some of the players had other, goals other than killing Nazis, Brian.
Yeah.
Hey, I saved the day.
Did you?
I did. Nobody was walking out of that place until I busted a hole in it.
Now again, because if I recollect, at the end of the scenario, somebody started eating the book. Was that how it happened? Yes.
Yeah.
Who was eating the book?
It was
Paps. That was Dan's
Paps.
character.
Yeah. So Cola.
Okay.
Yeah. It was Cola, and that was because he was the one who failed his sanity check and just he took maximum damage. He rolled a 6 on the D6, and we were like, "Oh shit, that means he has a And then it was roll intelligence, and he passed that test, of course. And it was well, all right, this turns out poorly. That's the worst one to succeed at.
But I mean, obviously, we have a character or an NPC that did the same thing earlier in the. So it's it just works.
Yeah, that worked out perfectly. It was like he was just like, I started eating the pages. I'm like, obviously, that's what he's gonna do.
Cheers.
Why wouldn't he?
Well, and what's funny though is on the whole timeline of things, Dan's character wasn't there for the book eating originally.
Yeah, so that's the weird twist on that. Was he wasn't there for it, but then he started eating it too, and it's like,
of course.
Yeah,
that's just the natural order of things. You get exposed to this
what
book.
you do.
The book wants
The book
you to
gives
eat
you the
it.
munchies.
Yeah. What? And the funny thing is like, this will go into critique just because, but that's also my fault because I didn't fully understand the rules. And, that's a GM thing. Like, I was like, I don't know how chases work at all, and so then I picked up the handler guide, or not handler guide. I'm sorry, keeper guide, not handler. I keep going back into Delta Green, the keeper guide. So I was like, I'll figure out how the chases work. And then I was reading those and I was like, this is way too complicated for what for us. But that's on the keeper guide. I was like, there should be like a simplified like motorcycle version of this.
I could have written something up, and because really a lot of people think that the chase rules are complicated. They can be really, really simple. Like all I needed to do was map out your path and then drop a couple of things in the path, and then you just fly at it, and it's not complicated. But I think the chase rules don't get very much love in the new Call of Cthulhu, which it's sad to me because I like a good action kind of bit going on. But
well, and I agree because I like the idea of the chase rules. It was just like as I was going through it real quick to try to prep for it, I was like, I'm not going to have time to do that.
It's just easier to make something up as you go. Yeah,
and I was and that was kind of my choice as a GM, keeper. I was like, nah, we'll bypass that and maybe save that for another time.
Yeah, if I was set on having a chase in there, I would have put more effort into it. And because in the book, I basically say if you want to do a chase, this would be a good place to do it,
Right.
So, but because like it leaves some of those opportunities for some of those great kind of like cinematic, end moments, bicycles flying through the air or vehicles flying through the air, and so
Well, and that's why I ended up kind of opting for a like in my brain it was like the Hellraiser ending where it was like, and then this thing flies, like through, and I was like, that was kind of what I was picturing, was like the demon at the end of I think it's the first Hellraiser movie, isn't it, Brian? Isn't that right? Where it's like no, was it Hellraiser or was it which movie was that? Anyway, sorry. There was one where it was like there was like all of a sudden this demon like at the end of it, and it was like a really bad like animation version of
Jeepers
it. I'm trying to remember.
No,
or Golden Child?
Big Trouble in Little China.
No. Anyway, whatever. I'll look it up later.
Because they had the beast in the back of the truck of Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah. There's that, but I don't remember. There was like specifically this image in my head, and it was like, I'll do something like that.
But it's fine. But again, that's perfect because it's leading into kind of the cinematic sequel bait kind of. Because I added sequel bait into the scenario if you were able to use it, just because that's how these movies are made. And ideally, I mean, what was your death toll at the end of the scenario? Who made it?
Everybody but one.
Who died? Who gacked it?
It was
Ragged Ass.
Ragged Ass. Ragged Ass is the one who got killed off. Yeah.
Okay.
In a very.
And that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but then Pabst or AKA Cola was not in a good
doing
place.
well.
No, well, after
it's
eating
like
the
one and
book,
a half.
he was
1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I think again, it's very different than a standard Call of Cthulhu scenario because I think you're expected to be a little more capable than standard Call of Cthulhu characters. I mean, at the same time, you want to try and have this big death toll if you can, because it kind of leans into the movie. But there's also a part of me who's like, I like these characters, and I want to see the next movie that the Devil's Pistons are part of. So part of me is like, well, I hope some people survive. But and again, as I make more scenarios for the Devil's Pistons, we'll build out their membership a bit more, and like we'll say, well, you can use the characters that are in Nazi Bikers Must Die, but you can also use these characters as well if you want.
If one of them might have perished during the bar fight, Nazi Bikers Must Die. Here are some other options.
Coming up with some other ideas. Like today, I came up with an idea for a character called call him Shaman, and I'd probably be like African American or something like that, and or Indian or Native American. Sorry, pardon me, that was a flub. But I think could be really interesting for kind of the character, and I like having those kind of like Air Force tagline names like Maverick or whatever as the names of the characters, because it's like I remember reading an old Sandman comic where they talk about names, and it's like, well, don't tell me your name. Names have power. Tell me what it is you want to be called. And it's like I like that, and I like using that for characters like this. So it's like, Ragged Ass Raleigh isn't necessarily his name, but it's what he likes to be called. Rabbi isn't your name, but it's what you want to be called. So
we ended up the shadow fact, the biker facts that I had them like come up with. I don't know if you want to use this or not, but Ben ended up having this whole backstory for his character that like he had been who was it again? I'm sorry, the singer from Fleetwood Mac. Why can't I not remember her name?
It's Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, Stevie Nicks. So he came up with this whole backstory for the character that he had like helped her out when she had like a cocaine overdose from like putting it up her butt.
Okay.
And so that evolved into like, that's where Ragged Ass came from, was from that like butt cocaine thing. So
I don't know if I should put that in a story.
I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that's where we went.
He's weighing in the chat.
Stevie Nicks and people contacting me. We heard you wrote something in your book about her inserting what into where? It's like,
I made sure to put a disclaimer in our like description that like, any any real people.
It's transformative art, so whatever.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't publish that.
No. Well, maybe we'll.
But that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that's just it opens it up for players, I guess, when they come up with stuff like that. But that's where that name ended up coming from, was from that whole
Stevie Nicks
cocaine
cool.
butt
I
thing.
like that.
So yeah,
I approve. I approve.
We did realize though that I think that would have been too early for 74, like for Fleetwood Mac. Like maybe they weren't big yet, but whatever.
Yeah, alternate timelines and whatnot. So
yeah, maybe they made it.
I mean, I tried to make things as specific to the time as much as possible. Like the answering machine was like when I brought the answering machine in, that shifted the year of the scenario by 1 year, because I wanted to have an answering machine, but it needed to be something that existed at the time. So I'm like, well, when was the first publicly used answering machine? And this is an actual device, and how it's described in the scenario is exactly what this thing looked like and how it was. So having those bits of real information helped to inform, when the scenario was and how it plays out. So
I'm trying to remember if you wrote it in there or if I made it up in the moment about her message on the answering machine. If it was like, now what do I do? Like there was like she didn't know how to leave the message. Yeah, I feel like you wrote it and I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Because again, it's like this is a brand new thing. And I think I needed to make sure that was translated somehow.
It was start talking now. That's what it was. Yeah. It was the start talking now bit at the beginning. Start talking now? Very well. Nigel. And then at the end, I threw in the thing at the end. It was like, so now what do I do?
How do I stop this? and it works. And it makes sense. And again, this is something that most people would probably have never. It's like, what? An answer? What? Who's asking? Are you there? What's going on? And so, it's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah. I really liked the whole phone mate answering machine thing. It amused me like to no end, because it was like, oh yeah, they wouldn't know how to use it because it didn't exist. And
why would they?
Yet? Yeah, no one was familiar with it.
It was just another stupid little thing that I added in there, and it's like it kind of took on a life of its, because like again, I just said, oh, they hear something on an answering machine, and then the question jumps in my head, oh, do they even have answering machines in 1970, whatever it was? So on the friggin' Wikipedia, it's like answering machines. Okay, so I needed to come up with a name, and this is the emblem that's on it, and it's like, and so it became this whole thing, and so like we've got a paragraph about a friggin' answering machine in a
yeah,
because it happens,
Yeah, I really liked the whole phone mate thing. That part really amused me. Yeah,
I'm wondering. Oh, sorry, go on.
Go, no,
Well, it's just because again, other little things. Did anybody recognize Larry the Boot?
I don't think so, and that might have been my fault at that point.
No, it's not. It's because I describe him, and essentially Larry the Boot is Yosemite Sam without a hat.
Oh, okay. God
dang, I wish I'd have known that, because when we were talking about describing bikes on the side of Rabbi's, it was Yosemite Sam was on the side of Rabbi's bike, like on the tank.
Right on. Yeah,
I wish I knew that.
Yeah, and that one came kind of just again out of the description. It's like, okay, he has a mustache, but he has a bald head, and it's like, oh, well, maybe you should have a red mustache, big bushy red mustache. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm describing Yosemite Sam. And so that's how the character starts acting, because he's a little bit more agitated and gruff and whatnot. So, but yeah.
He has a hat. He has a hat in the picture.
Oh, he did have the hat. Oh, he did have
yes, he did. Yeah,
never mind.
He did have the hat. Yeah. I was like, I thought he had a hat, because I was like, no, he's got a cowboy hat on, and yeah.
Yosemite Sam.
Speaking of pictures, this was Jeremy's critique, and I don't know if you remember saying this, that the mountains, he said the mountains were too close in the picture of the bookstore.
Probably. I mean, we're sourcing a lot of this stuff from free images and whatnot. So as long as it conveys some of the elements. So.
Yeah. The Adobe works pretty good. It works. Yeah. Oh, so I am curious, why New Mexico? Like what part of New Mexico drew you to using it as a setting?
I honestly can't remember. I think I knew that I didn't want it to be on the East Coast, because it's just too, it's like Call of Cthulhu's always on the East Coast around Arkham and all that stuff. So I think I wanted to kind of lean into that kind of like dusty biker aesthetic, quasi kind of Western thing going on.
Yeah.
And I like having like little nods and stuff, because like Dexter is like a stone's throw away from Roswell.
Yeah.
So it's a great little kind of completely red herring to drop in there. And the fact that I had the guy you're working for is in Las Vegas. So it just ended up being the right place, and just looking at a map and saying, okay, they're coming from Oklahoma and they're going to Las Vegas. What's in between there? And boom. And that's just sort of where I ended up. And I knew I didn't want to be in a major city, and I didn't want to be in too small a place. Right. And Dexter is a real town.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like the map in the book is basically the map of the town. Although the placement of all these stores and bars and stuff are completely fabricated, but it actually exists, and that is the map of that town. And we sort of co-opted it because it just sort of it worked for what I needed it to do. It's necessity kind of creates what you need, and you just end up finding it. I tend to follow threads to the logical place that it needs to go, and it just ended up in Dexter.
Right. Somewhat related, I really appreciate getting the map of it without the labels of where stuff was. Because it's like, oh man, I got to go through and like edit this stuff out.
You asked for that, I think.
Yeah,
you specifically requested it, and I had to talk to Alex. I said, "Can you take everything out and give me the map?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure." Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah,
and sent it to me in like 5 minutes, and so I sent that to you. So I think he may have added it to the it
would be a good idea. So, yeah, because that was kind of like I was like, yeah, you should. We need a map without all the stuff on it so that they don't know where it is.
Yeah, no, and again, it's like it's learning these things as you're going along, because again, they're little things that I didn't do in the scenario. Like one thing that I still kick myself that I never did is I didn't write any stats for the book in the scenario.
Yeah,
I know, and I'm like, what is wrong with my brain? And we both realized it afterwards, and it was already out the door. And it was like we already said exactly what it does. So I mean, people can futz rolls, and if they want to do anything weird with it, they can. But I just, and again, it was something that was on my mind, but it was getting to crunch time, and it just got it got forgotten. And and again, it's just one of those little things that I just need to take better notes so that I don't forget things like that. So, but thankfully, honestly, nobody's ever brought that up to me, so it hasn't been an issue that somebody specifically said, why aren't there stats for the book? So I was like, yeah, obviously it's not that important, but it's something I kind of kick myself about because I realized, yeah, I forgot to do that. So.
Well, at that point, it kind of makes it a MacGuffin, right? Or
Yeah,
like it's like
to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to the progression of the story. I mean,
sure.
Again, it's like the monster needs the book to exist, essentially. Now, what did you guys think of the monster?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Which one?
Which
monster are we talking about here?
Well, see, and this is yet again my fault.
That goes through like the ceiling, or like the little zombies that break out everywhere.
They're kind of the same thing, but the zombies that break out of them, that's the main kind of feel that I was going for. I wanted.
I think I skipped a stage in the process when I was in my descriptions, just because I was like, moving stuff along. There was there was a middle stage in between person and heads coming off and being used as weapons. Like I kind of
pretty subtle, so
I kind of skipped that little step a little bit and was like, they weren't really hitting Nazis at that point anyway, so it's like they wouldn't have noticed, I guess. But
and no, it's fine. I mean, it's the end point that was important, really. I was like, I wanted to come up with something that was, because I've talked to other people too about, there's a very big difference between creating a monster or a situation in a role-playing game that's going to scare the characters, and it's something that's going to scare the players. Two very, very different things. Because if you're role-playing well, you're going to be scared of what you're supposed to be scared of. But you, as a player, it's like, okay, I know this is just somebody reading words off the page. It's not going to freak me out. I wanted something that was going to do both. So having this idea of this monster that erupts essentially out of this body and sort of marionettes it and uses the still living head as a bludgeoning weapon, I think that's pretty horrific. I like that.
It was over the top, and I definitely had some what the fuck energy going on.
Like at one point, I think I had one of the Nazi heads as it was going by in slow motion, go help me, but no one's gonna feel bad for the Nazi. They're gonna be like, yeah, fuck you, dude.
But it's still horrific. It's
right.
Pretty awful.
What a way to go.
Mouthing talk. It's like I envision people getting smacked in the face with a Nazi skull that's still kind of help. This is not normal. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I really liked the monster. I liked how it breaking out and the whole year of the portal thing was fun.
Yeah. That was it was a lot of fun to make something original like that. Like with my first scenario, the one I did for the Sons of Singularity and General Dinoshin, I also created an original monster, and I'd used I'd researched cryptids of Vietnam, because it was in Vietnam where it took place in late 60s, I think, and there's a cryptid called the Con Rit in Vietnam that's essentially kind of a underwater centipede of really, really large size. That's very basically describing it. So I took that and I kind of augmented it and added a bit of lobster. And so I actually got when I created it and I had the project artist make a picture of it. Everybody loved it so much they put it on the cover. Let's see. There we go. Oh, there it is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Holy crap!
That is freaking. I look at that and I'm like, I made that. That's my baby. And it was like they sent me the first draft of it, and it didn't have the lobster claws in the front. It was just a giant centipede with the twitchy mouth. I'm like, it's got to have the lobster claws, because it's front of a lobster, back of a centipede, and so he easily added it in, and I'm sorry. I love that picture. I just love that picture. I got to get it blown up to poster size. But it's just fun coming up with these original creatures. And it's as much as it's fun using the pre-established mythos critters that exist out there, I think people don't realize that there's so much freedom in creating something new that can still work within the mythos in one fashion or another, like with the Zaracen that called them in Nazi Bikers Must Die, and their kind of their origin and where they're coming from and what they really are is there's a lot to it, and it's I don't know how deep I go into it in the book, but it's like, you know, there's real mythos connections and stuff that the directions I'd like to go in future stories, kind of things. So with that idea, so.
Well, the fun thing is, and this is as a handler, like I kind of like those things, even though like they never make their way to the players. You know what I mean? Like I appreciate that level of like detail, because it's like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. They're never gonna know this, but that's also what makes it scarier. You know, it's like, but they don't know.
It gives you as a GM or keeper. It's like I've been using the wrong terminology. A lot more material to riff from, I think. It's like how much did you, as the players, you Jeremiah and Brian and even Ben and Dan, if they're still listening online, how much were you aware of who Mueller was in his past? Did you find out much about that in the course of the scenario?
I don't
the big Nazi guy with the shaved head.
Yeah,
I think other than when we actually got to the beginning of the bar, that was the most information drop we had actually gotten about him. That was right before everything popped off. So it was kind of like, all right, he's just bad news.
we got like a 5-minute exposition on how bad he was, and I'm sure it just skimmed the surface of truly how terrible he was.
Well, but the thing is, he's a real person.
Yeah.
The idea I came up with,
I just called him Gestapo the whole time. I didn't say Mueller.
And that's fine. Yeah.
Well,
I did another Google search. You know, I wanted to know who the highest ranking Nazi who was not captured after World War II was. And this guy, Heinrich Mueller, who existed, Heinrich Gestapo Mueller, was a man who actually existed and went missing. Nobody knows what ever happened to him. And I'm like, okay, there's my guy. That's perfect. But again, I knew it was something that would probably never get revealed in game. Not in a way that would be really like a revelation or anything. But
and also, he probably won't sue, so you know.
Yeah, well, I don't care. The friggin' Nazi can deal with it.
I'm just saying, it's not like he's going to come out.
We already talked about that.
It's not like he's going to come out of hiding to sue.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to come out of hiding to complain about a Call of Cthulhu.
Hey, wait a minute.
This is completely wrong. It's like, oh no, the Jews are coming for me now. Some uncomfortable moments.
I mean, that sounds like what he would say. So
yeah, exactly. Well, but at the same time, too, like that kind of brings up another thing, because like originally, in the first draft of the story, the organization that the woman professor worked with, was like an actual organization that existed that they went out and killed Nazis. And again, to the credit of our editor, Keith, he said that may not be a good idea, because we're dealing with, and again, it's like you're already dealing with Nazis. Last thing you need to do is call into reality, or not even just reality, like call the reality of these Nazi hunters out. And I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. So I changed the name and came up with something original that was more. They were Nazi hunters with an occult spin to them. So that made it work pretty good. And it was like, I mean, I'm not the type who's going to get, I was like, oh, it's my baby, my words need to stay exactly. No. I completely understand, especially when you're dealing with stuff like with the racism and Nazis and Holocaust. I mean, it's like I'm dealing with a lot of heavy details in this scenario that is meant to be fun. And it's a very fine line to walk. And it's nerve-wracking, quite frankly.
And like that was one of the things too. I was going to bring this up before, but like at the beginning of the scenario, you kind of mentioned that like there's like hey, this includes this and this and this and this, and if anyone's, you know, if this will potentially offend anybody, have conversations with, you know, everyone. But I thought it was handled really well. I mean, and mostly because I have no qualms with Nazis being the eternal bad guys.
Yeah,
It's like, it's fine.
exactly.
No. Oh, there's this group
Yeah,
of people
yeah,
hunting
yeah,
them. Cool.
Yeah,
Great.
and I wrote that. I wrote that to cover my own butt for
Yeah.
the most part, because there are going to be some people who are going to complain about stuff like that, and some people, and again, and legitimately so. Some
Right.
people are going to have issues with using iconography and ideas about the Holocaust as part of an entertainment adventure romp, which is essentially what this is. And I can get why some people would have issue with that, and they're completely legitimate, and they're completely allowed to have that perspective. I don't discredit it at all. So writing that was basically saying, if this isn't for you, it's not for you. And if you have problems with killing Nazis, then you're definitely got the wrong scenario.
Right. Yeah. It's like, it's
The
called
title
Nazi
alone.
Bikers Must Die.
Yeah, exactly. It's
alone
like, if
is
you
kinda
didn't
like-
read the title well enough, then I don't know what to say to you. So,
Well, that's just, that makes me think of the. Did you ever watch Mitchell and Webb? That was like the British sketch show. Anyway, they were the guys that went on to make Peep Show. Anyway, they had this sketch show earlier on, and like the very first sketch and like the very first episode, they're playing these Nazis, right? And the one guy's like, why do we? Have you ever wondered if we're the baddies? And he goes through like the whole list. He's like, we've got skulls on our caps. Like, we look like the bad guys. And like the whole thing's built off of that like, and he's like, well, no, it's to, represent our perfect Aryan skulls. He's like, is it? Is that what that is? But it's like one of my favorite skits, because it's like them just realizing, oh, wait, we're the bad guys in the movie that is the world.
Well, I think, but that becomes the trick, is when you're doing something like this with dealing with such heavy topics, you either have to treat it with kid gloves, or you have to just go so far over the top that nobody can possibly take it seriously. And I think I mostly did the second part. Is I just it's like, it's over the top. It's meant to be that. And again, it's like, if you're going to come at me and say, well, I don't think you should treat Nazis so harshly, I'm going to be like, go suck a dick and go away. Like, just leave me alone. Okay, that wasn't a nice thing to say. It's like, just go away.
And if you don't think it's
dicks, that's fine. Yeah.
If you don't think it's fun to kill Nazis, then maybe find one where that's not what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
The only time I was like, was because I rolled to see which character I was going to play, and I ended up with Rabbi, and I was like, how do I play Rabbi and not be an asshole? That was like, how do I play him and not have people fucking hate me? Like,
you did a good job, though. I thought you did a good job.
I tried.
Yeah. I don't think you did any stereotypes or anything.
Yeah,
so that
like that's what I generally tried to avoid.
Yeah.
I think it was necessary to have that kind of a character in there.
Oh,
Right.
for sure. You
100%.
absolutely needed the
100%.
polar opposite from your bad guys.
Exactly, and it just sort of it gives the entire party kind of a focal point for an extra reason to hate their enemy. It's like, these are not our friends, and this is our friend, and we care about what he cares about.
Right.
And he obviously cares that these guys have got to just
they got to go
die.
Yeah.
So, no, that was definitely important. So, but again, I can definitely say, some people would be uncomfortable with it. How do I approach that? And again, it depends on the role player. There are some role players who are like, this is not something I want to delve into. And it's like, you got your method actor type role players who might, it's like, I don't think I'm ready to go that dark a place with this. And,
I think
it's dark.
He's looking at me. He's looking at me. It's definitely my style.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you're having fun, that's the aim of it. And by the sounds of it, everybody had fun. So I mean,
it was a blast.
It was a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah, all around, I would recommend this for people. I would recommend for new handlers, keepers. One, to know what the name of your job is. Two, but I ran this pretty much with just like the quick start guide, and it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I quickly bought the other books because I was like, I need to run more Call of Cthulhu anyway, because I love that kind of game. Jeremy knows that about me, and so does Brian. but
It's because
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
a sadist.
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
we still can't talk him into playing anything that doesn't make us all cry.
they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
Hey, if that's your truth, man. Run
Yeah.
with it.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed running it. I think everybody enjoyed playing it, even Dan and Ben. And I'm fairly certain that Ben enjoyed it.
Yeah.
He's in the chat at least, so that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's,
Yeah.
I enjoy it, but again, it's like I need to really kind of buckle down and watch all of it when I get some free time just to sit down and watch, because like it's just a lot to with all the other things that I got going on, unfortunately. But what I did see of it, you guys killed it. You guys
Yeah.
had a lot of fun and just went full in. And looks like I watched a bit with my wife, and it's like I remember commenting on Twitter. It's like, oh, my wife thinks that
was
Dan's hot. Great.
That was so funny. That was so funny. We were
Like,
tagging him in it.
if Dan was going to be in the chat here, I was going to bring my wife in. It's like, oh, you can meet Dan. So,
Oh,
but yeah, when more Devil's Piston stuff happens, I'll be sure to tell you guys. So
100%. And if you want to like work out some sort of like, hey, it's getting ready to be released, and we'll do a run with
definitely.
it. That
No,
would be
that's
amazing.
Yeah. that would be totally my intention. It's like,
Yeah.
as much
Did you
as
hear that, Ben?
promotional, yeah, but promotional is great. But just to see people kind of having as much fun with it as you guys did, and I think the great thing about, without kind of pumping myself up too much here, but the great thing about that scenario is that somebody else can run it and have a very different kind of setup and outcome than you guys did, and and that makes me very happy that it kind of engenders itself to like, if somebody has listened to your podcast all the way through, there are still surprises, considerable surprises in the scenario for people to want to play and run it. So it's kind of your guys' playthrough is the perfect kind of promotional fodder to get people to buy this and say, well, I can still run it and have a completely new experience.
Oh
Yeah, there was a bunch of shit in there that I made up or that they made up, and it's not in the book at all. And you could have your players make up shit too. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, if you go in with that kind of the feeling of making it just an over the top film, you're halfway there already. So and again, like I said, you're the way you did your camera moves, and it's like I remember listening to the ending where you're talking about the thing flapping behind them. I'm like, sequel bait, awesome.
Yeah,
Perfect.
of course, yeah.
And yeah, so it was a joy. It was a joy to listen to what I was able to listen to with you guys. So, and it makes me happy that you enjoyed it so much.
Oh yeah, no, we
For sure.
Yeah, I had a blast. I can't speak for anybody else, but it sounds like they did too. So
yeah.
Well, James, thank you for being on. Everyone's in the chat. Ben, thank you for being in the chat. Wish you could have been on, but I understand completely. And anyone else, if you want to look this up, check out the Grindhouse series. There's a bunch of them, actually.
This is just volume 4.
4, yeah.
Although volumes 1 through 3 are collected together with a bonus scenario. So I didn't have anything to do with any of those ones. But that doesn't mean they're fantastic. I mean, it's like I kind of wrote in and I'm like, hey, I'd love to do something like this. And
I play too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's Alex's toys, and the fact that Alex let me play with his toys was wonderful, and I'm getting chances to do some really cool things with those toys, and I couldn't be happier. So check out the collected Grindhouse. Check out Volume 4. They're both on Drive-Thru RPG. Hopefully not too many more sales before we can go to print for Volume 4. You need to hit Electrum to get to be able to print on Drive-Thru RPG. So or Electrum or no Gold. Yeah, Gold, I think. So I think we're about 100 sales away from that. So hey, yeah, if you're on the fence about getting Volume 4, now's the time.
Yeah,
link in the comments.
And there's another scenario in it that we didn't run, which also looks really cool. So
Cold as hell.
I was kind of reading through that one and like, oh, maybe I should
Yeah.
run this one too. So
Yeah, that's Alex's. It's fantastic
yeah,
scenario.
yeah,
Definitely check it out.
Yeah, it looked really cool. I like.
Yeah.
But do you have anything new that you're working on other than the follow-up sequel?
That one I can't talk much about right now. I've always got things going on. It's been a rough year for me, unfortunately, creatively and personally. But it's starting to pan out again. I've got two grindhouse related scenarios that I'm working on. One that I've been working on for about a year, honestly, and just stuff got in the way. I'll spoil it a bit. It basically take one part gremlins, but replace the gremlins with turkeys.
I'm in.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
It's awesome. Just your standard kind of like holiday monster creature movie, except the creatures are the turkeys that are attacking people, and that's sort of what I built it around. I ran a playtest of it last year at CamCon, and it was an absolute hoot.
Are they normal sized turkeys, or are they like leapers turkeys, like where they're oversized?
You'll need to play the scenario and find out.
I do need to play the scenario.
It'll be an excuse to do the turkey call.
But that one, I think it'll be a little more simple than Nazi Bikers. But there's that. I've got another one that's kind of like creatures in the lab kind of concept that I'm working on. And I have a friend who is writing an additional supplement to the recent Mork Borg spinoff called Ronin, and he's writing a book called Bird Songs that is kind of an expansion and scenarios to Ronin, and he's asked for my help on that. So that's that's Brian J. McLean. And he's a designer and writer, and he is a genius. And I am honored to work with him. So hopefully we can make that work. I've got just like again, it's like I've got too many plans and not enough time.
Yep.
And
agreed.
And when we get offline, I'll tell you about a couple of other things that are going on that we can keep between us. But yeah. So
and the turkeys.
And the
turkeys. Yeah, exactly. Turkeys. I'll get the turkeys done for you guys.
And the other biker one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us in the chat. If you have any other questions, you can probably ask James on Twitter, and he'll probably answer them. And,
I will.
Yep. Have a good night. Thanks again to the Pink Faux Hawk guys. I would love to do some Shadowrun stuff, Ben. I've been asking forever for you to bring us on Pink Faux Hawk. But anyway.
That's all right. They don't release episodes.
They are notoriously slow at releasing episodes. All right. But thank you, everyone. Have a good night. And